Hi, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join me on this week's video. On this week's video, we're in session number 2 of our new program entitled Update on the QME Regulations 2024. And as this is being recorded, the new QME regulations have just been adopted. We've just been informed in unpublished form, by the way. We've just been informed that the new QME regulations have been adopted, and they've been adopted retroactive to February 2024. Now, this is being recorded in mid to late April 2024, so the new regulations are upon us. And in this program, I want to share with you those portions of the new QME regulations that have the most immediate and dramatic impact on your day-to-day operations as a qualified medical evaluator. And in our last session, we began with just a brief overview of some of the significant changes that you need to be aware of moving forward. And although we're not ready to get to it in today's session, I just want to let you know that there's a brand new disclosure that you're required to include in the disclosures section of your report. Can you imagine this? Another disclosure? Well, there's a new disclosure that we're required to include in the disclosure section of our report, effective immediately. Now, that's going to be the topic of our next discussion, but that just serves as an example as to the new changes that are upon us that you need to be aware of in order to be in compliance with these new QME regulations. And I don't know what the Division of Workers' Compensation's plan is to notify or inform all of us about these new changes, but let this program serve as your notification about both the adoption of the new QME regulations and those portions of the regulations that most apply to you in your day-to-day operations as a qualified medical evaluator. So from the new regulations, I've selected these topics here, and we went over these in general in our last session. These are the topics that I consider to be the most relevant to you and that represent the great opportunities for you to greatly expand your influence and expand your practice as a qualified medical evaluator. And as we go over each of these new regulations or the changes to existing regulations, I'm going to share with you wherein your opportunity lies and how you can exploit these new changes to the regulations to enhance your reputation and to enhance the volume of cases that come across your desk for your expert evaluation. So in our last session, we just took a broad brush stroke over the following general topics. We talked about scheduling appointments and the new, but not so new, changes to CCR 31.3 that talks about the timelines that we have now available for scheduling our appointments. We talked about what CCR 35.5 has to say about our obligations as reporting evaluators and what we must include in our reports in order to be in compliance with reporting and evaluation guidelines. And right here, I gave you a quick peek at the tremendous opportunity for you to expand your influence as a top-notch QME. And then when we get into this in our next session, this will be the topic of our next session. When we get into this topic in our next session, I'm going to share with you in great detail how you can exploit the language in CCR 35.5 to your great advantage. We talked about now, these are new regulations. The anti-bias regulations, these are brand new. And we talked in general about the philosophy of the anti-bias regulations and how that's going to impact you in every single aspect of your evaluation, from the face-to-face evaluation to the opinions and conclusions that you offer in your report, all the way to that disclosure statement that I was just referring to, wherein you disclose to the parties by way of your signature that you have not discriminated or engaged in stereotyping or have any bias against any party in your evaluation. So that's a broad, sweeping disclosure, which is now required. And we'll talk at great length more about that in just a couple of sessions. We talked about how electronic service is transforming the industry and is increasing the efficiency and the cost effectiveness of each and every evaluation that we do. And this is new, but again, not so new. Electronic service has been around for a little while, at least since the COVID era. But now, written into permanent law is our ability, should we so choose to exercise it, our option, that is, to submit our reports to the parties electronically versus the old snail mail, expensive and time-consuming way. We now have an efficient and cost-effective method using electronic service. So that's a great new innovation, which I just love as an administrator and a business owner. I just love electronic service, or at least the option of having electronic service available. We talked about, briefly, we talked about CCR 51 and what the new regulations have to say about the situations wherein the Division of Workers' Compensation can deny you your reappointment as a QME. And basically, suffice to say that the Division of Workers' Compensation wants to keep you as a QME. You know, we do not have enough QMEs. We lack sufficient quantities of QMEs to be able to expeditiously handle medical disputes in the workers' compensation system. So we need each and every one of us and each and every one of you to retain your QME credential. But there are certain situations where bad apples need to be removed from the system, because bad apples cause more harm than they do good to the system. And those situations wherein bad apples can be weeded out are described here in CCR 51, and we'll go over that at great length in a future session as well. And I have several other things, many other things I want to share with you regarding the new regulations. And it's very interesting because as I speak with qualified medical evaluators, particularly younger or newer qualified medical evaluators, and we talk about labor codes and codes of regulation, you know, you can read labor codes and codes of regulations until you're blue in the face, but they only become real to you when you see how they manifest or how they unfold in actual practice as a qualified medical evaluator. And each one of the codes of regulation and each one of the important labor codes that govern the QME evaluation actually play out in actual practice. You have to be able to identify when these labor codes and when these codes of regulations are operative in your evaluation. And that's what I want to share with you more than anything else in this program. I want to show you how these regulations are involved and how they manifest and how they play out and how they govern your evaluations. I want to give you the practical, real-life example as to where these regulations are operating either behind the scenes or on the actual scene of your evaluation. So I have a tremendous program for you over the next several sessions. In today's session, I want to talk to you about scheduling appointments. And this is going to be a fascinating section for you because we're going to talk about how you can be discerning and how you can be strategic in the appointments that you agree to put on your book, and how you can assure that the appointments that actually land on your appointment book are actual agreed upon, compensable evaluations. And an agreed upon compensable evaluation is a different animal than a request for an evaluation, which you get all the time, either by telephone or by your email inbox. So this is going to be a fascinating session for you about how to remain profitable as a qualified medical evaluator. So with that as an introduction, let's get started today on session number 2 of our new program, entitled Update on the QME Regulations 2024. And today we're talking about scheduling profitable appointments. Okay, so let's begin. Let's begin by talking about scheduling profitable appointments. And let's see how CCR 31.3 governs the scheduling of our QME appointments and how we can use the language and the whole process involved with scheduling appointments so that we can ensure that by the time an appointment lands on our book and we begin the administrative process on actually getting that appointment to completion, that all of our administrative work and all of our time, effort, and energy spent on this evaluation is well spent, is profitable, and such that the appointment is an actual compensable appointment. So let's begin by talking about what the language of CCR 31.3 has to say. So this is right out of the QME regulations, and as I said, this section of the regulations is not new. This section of the regulation was adopted 2/2/23, so it's kind of new. It's just over a year old. And the reason for this is, the reason it was adopted February 2023 is because this language that I'm going to share with you was adopted as part of the temporary COVID regulations during the period of time that we were dealing with the Corona era and the coronavirus pandemic. So during that time, there was some necessary changes that had to be made to the QME regulations in order to keep the system from collapsing, one of which was more generous and more relaxed timelines for scheduling appointments. Well, after the COVID era passed and things started returning to normal, research confirmed that the new relaxed timelines for scheduling appointments had a beneficial effect on the system. And for that reason, the new relaxed language, the new relaxed scheduling timelines were adopted permanently into permanent law on February 2nd, 2023. So let's just review this now. This is important for all of you who are involved with either scheduling appointments for yourself or scheduling appointments for other persons. So it says, and this is section E, and we'll go over some of the other sections that precede E in just a minute. It says, if a party with the legal right to schedule an appointment. So let's just stop right there. Which of the parties can have the legal right to schedule the appointment? Well, that can vary. In the case of an unrepresented injured worker, initially at least, it's the unrepresented injured worker that has the legal right to schedule the appointment. Okay, the unrepresented injured worker can lose that right if they violate the timelines for scheduling that appointment, but initially it's the unrepresented injured worker that has that legal right. In the case of a represented injured worker, the party having the legal right could vary depending upon who takes authority and who struck the last man and who was the first to strike and who was the second to strike. And so the party who has the legal right can vary. And this regulation doesn't tell us who has the legal right. It just simply refers to the party that has the right. So it says if a party with the legal right to schedule an appointment with a QME is unable to obtain an appointment with a selected QME within 90 days, important to remember this now, within 90 days of the date of the appointment request. Okay, so you receive a phone call today, and the phone caller asks, when is Dr. Smith scheduling appointments in Antioch, California? If they are unable to get an appointment within 90 days of the date of the request, that party, meaning the party that's calling, the party with the legal right to schedule the appointment, that party now has some authority. They have some rights. Okay, that party may waive their right. They have a right. They may waive their right to a replacement panel in order to accept an appointment no more than 120 days. This should say 120 days. Okay, 120 days after the date of the party's initial request for an appointment request. Okay, so let's think about this. It says that if you're able to schedule the appointment in 90 days or less, then all is well and good. if you're not able to schedule the appointment until the 91st day, the person who has the legal right to schedule the appointment, the person who's calling you for the appointment, they can have you replaced. They can request, by law, they have the right. It says here the right. That party may waive the right to a replacement panel. So they can have you replaced. So if any of the parties are equivocal on you to begin with, this is the perfect opportunity for the party to get a brand new panel of 3 qualified medical evaluators and start the whole process over again. So the party with the legal right to schedule the appointment has a decision to make. Their decisions are, number 1, should we request a replacement panel? Or, number 2, are we willing to wait for this qualified medical evaluator up to 120 days? Up to 120 days. So they have a 30-day decision to make. Okay? So they can decide to start over new with a brand new panel and skip you altogether. Or if they're seeking an appointment with you, if they're committed to you, if they want you to be the evaluator, they can agree to wait another 30 days, up to a total of 120 days. They still retain that right to use you as the qualified medical evaluator. So the party that makes the phone call to you to request an appointment has a lot of control over the scheduling process. And I shared with you they have at least 2 methods over which they can exercise their control. It says when the selected QME is now unable to schedule the evaluation with 120 days of the date of that party's initial request for an appointment request, either party, the party with the legal right, let's say that's the applicant attorney, or the other party, the defense attorney, either party may report the unavailability of the QME, and the medical director down at the DWC shall issue a replacement panel pursuant to Section 31.5 of the QME regulations. 31.5 is the section of the regulations that describes about 15 different circumstances wherein a QME replacement panel will be issued. And one of the circumstances for which a replacement panel is appropriate is unavailability of the QME. Unless both parties agree in writing, okay, so now this requires an action step from the parties. Think about this. If you're not available until 125 days, both parties can still use you. In fact, if the party with the legal right to schedule the appointment has decided to wait for you for 120 days, okay, 30 days beyond the 90 days, if they've decided to wait for you, it's because they want you, okay? But after 121 days, no matter how much they want you, the other party can declare you to be unavailable. And can you see how there's this shifting of control and power structure over this QME panel process? It's quite fascinating, and I'll share with you how you leverage this in just a moment. So after 121 days, one, the other, both parties can declare you to be unavailable. But if both parties want you, if you have a strong enough reputation with the parties, and both parties, believe it or not, if they both agree to you, okay, which is difficult and is unusual, but if both agree, then, and if they both agree in writing, then you can retain the job as a qualified medical evaluator. But notice here, this requires an action step from the parties to agree in writing. So you have to get 2 parties to do an action step to agree in writing. And this is unusual and this is complex. In fact, it's much easier to simply just throw up your hands and declare that you want to get a replacement panel, okay, if you're one of the parties. But if they both agree, then they can wait for you for as long as it takes to get the evaluation if they both agree in writing, okay? So imagine this, your phone rings for an appointment and the parties have one simple question. They ask you, when are you scheduling appointments in Anaheim, California? If you hope to retain this case, no questions asked, right, with no issues and no opportunity for the parties to request a replacement panel, the correct answer is less than 90 days. I'm scheduling appointments less than 90 days. And you can fill in the blank. You can say, I'm scheduling in Anaheim between 60 and 90 days. That way, you're always administratively available. You're available, quote unquote, available, and you retain the case regardless of the whims and fancies of the parties. Okay, so that's the correct answer when you get that particular phone call. Okay, so let's just take a look at this real quick. This is the QME regulations here. We're on the the Department of Industrial Relations website, and here are all the QME regulations. And we're talking about CCR 31.3. So here is that 31.3, scheduling the appointment with the panel QME. And here's the language. We just went over section E, and let me just show you here. It says here, amendment of subsection E was filed 2/2/23 and became operative 2/2/23. So this is kind of new. It's not exactly new with the newest QME regulations, which were adopted February 2024, but it's kind of new and not everyone is yet aware of this. So it's important to be aware of it that, you know, the initial request has a 90-day limit where the party scheduling the appointment, they can decide that after 90 days, they can request a replacement panel. They can agree to waive their right for a panel and wait for you as many as 120 days. But after 120 days, to retain you as the qualified medical evaluator, both parties must agree in writing to waive the 120-day time limit for scheduling the initial comprehensive medical legal evaluation, and this also applies to any subsequent re-evaluation. So guess what? If you don't want to do re-evaluations, don't be available within 120 days, and the parties may go back and get a new panel and start all over. It's not likely that they'll do that, but they have the legal right to do that. So when you get this phone call, the answer is always, I'm available in less than 90 days. Otherwise, you run the risk of losing that appointment. Okay, so the correct answer when you get that phone call, you're going to get these phone calls for every single appointment. The parties are going to call you and they're going to do the availability dance. And they're going to ask you the availability question because that's the first determination in the striking process on the QME panel is to determine who's available and who's not available. If one or more of the doctors are not available, then that can influence the entire striking process. And there's a whole strategy involved with striking evaluators from the panel. Okay, so the correct answer when you get that call is, I'm scheduling in less than 90 days. So that's the phone call that you get to schedule an appointment. So we're going to talk about scheduling appointments and scheduling profitable appointments. Well, behind the scenes, what you may or may not understand is how is it that the parties come to call you for an evaluation in the first place? What's happening behind the scenes that causes your phone to ring in the first place? Well, that's described for us in Labor Code section 4062.2, and we're going to focus on section C, which has to deal with represented injured workers. Unrepresented injured workers, the labor code that governs that process is described in 4062.2. So, no, I'm sorry, 4062.1. This is 4062.2, dealing with represented injured workers. And this is what's happening unbeknownst to you that causes your phone to ring. It says that, and this is very, very important, pay close attention to this. It says within 10 days of assignment of the panel, by the administrative director, each party may strike one name from the panel, okay, within 10 days. So you can imagine that there's a whole strategy as to how to manage this 10 days, with one party anxiously awaiting for the 11th day, hoping that the other party may not have exercised their right to strike, correct? You can imagine that this 10 days is a point of great strategy. The remaining qualified medical evaluator, the evaluator who remains, is referred to as the last evaluator standing. After each party has exercised their right to strike a name from the 3-doctor panel, strike, last evaluator remaining, okay? The remaining qualified medical evaluator shall serve as the medical evaluator in this particular case. Now pay close attention here. It says, if a party fails to exercise the right to strike a name from the panel within 10 days of the assignment of the panel by the administrative director, and all of these panels are dated, they all have a date of issuance on the top of the panel, then after 10 days, the other party, okay, the party is now going to gain the right to schedule the appointment. The other party may select any physician who remains on the panel to serve as the medical evaluator. So let's say, for example, the applicant attorney requests a QME panel. The applicant attorney gets a panel of 3 doctors. The applicant attorney looks at the 3 doctors on the panel and decides to strike Dr. A. There's now 2 doctors remaining on the panel. And the applicant attorney is waiting the 10-day time period. On the 11th day, if the other party, say for example the claims administrator or for example the defense attorney, they have failed to exercise their right to strike, the applicant attorney can choose either of the 2 doctors who remain on the panel, the doctor that's not been stricken, to do the evaluation. Okay? So it's in this case, the applicant attorney that has the authority after 10 days to select the evaluator to do the evaluation. Can you see the control, the exercise of control by the applicant attorney if the other party fails to respond within 10 days? Now, how does this affect you as the qualified medical evaluator? I'm telling you that you're going to get many requests for appointments where the 10-day time period has lapsed and there's only one strike on the panel. Only the initial strike has been exercised. And the party, say in our example, we're talking about the applicant attorney, will tell you or will tell your office that the other party failed to exercise their right to strike, and therefore the applicant attorney is taking control over the evaluation, and the applicant attorney is choosing you to be the medical evaluator for the evaluation. I'm telling you that this is going to happen to you in 55% of all of your cases. You'll get this exact scenario where the other party has not exercised their right to strike. Now, let me ask you, what are the situations, circumstances, and scenarios wherein the other party could fail to exercise their opportunity to exert some control, some authority, some influence over the evaluation? What are those circumstances? I'm telling you that those circumstances are quite limited. There's a finite number of circumstances, and all of them are causes for concern for you as the medical evaluator, because you can imagine that one of those circumstances has to do with the party claiming to be totally unaware that a panel was ever issued in the first place, or the party has an objection to the specialty of provider selected to do the evaluation, or any number of other objections. Fill in the blank. We'll just call these objections by the other party that would therefore cause a dispute over this panel, and for you, that spells the potential, that starts to smell like and spells the potential for an unprofitable or unauthorized evaluation. So you need to be aware of this, and let's investigate this a little bit closer. So when you get a phone call with a request for an appointment, those appointment requests will divide themselves out into two general categories. Number one, the high profitability evaluations, and number two, the low profitability evaluations, or we could simply use the terms high quality and low quality appointment requests. And you need to distinguish between the two of them, because you're going to experience time after time after time again, if you don't take these appointment requests through a filtration process to increase and enhance the quality of the request, you're going to be spending a lot of administrative time, a lot of personal time, a lot of traveling time, a lot of gearing up for appointments that one or the other parties has a legal right to object to. Okay, so that provision in Labor Code Section 4062.2c, which allows one party to exercise the control over the panel after the 11th day, that applies to the parties. There's no language in that section of the law that deals with your obligation as a qualified medical evaluator. So I want to share with you some ideas here in the next several slides as to how you can handle these requests so that you end up scheduling only those requests that are high quality appointment requests. So what can you do? What can you do? Well, you can do several things. So let's go over these things. This is how you ramp up and confirm the quality of the request, meaning the potential for this particular request to turn into a compensable evaluation for you as the evaluator. So when you get this request, you want to demand that the party who's scheduling the appointment send you some documentation, and they'll agree to send you this documentation if you make this part of your regular scheduling policy. So the first thing that you want to get is you want to get a copy of QME Form 106, and I'll show you QME Form 106 in just a minute. The purpose behind getting QME Form 106, and the parties have this form. They will send this to you if you insist that they do. If you don't insist that they do, they will not send it to you. Okay, they will default to the path of least resistance, and they'll do the least amount of work necessary just to get this appointment off their desk and onto your desk. So QME Form 106 has tremendous value for you as the scheduling evaluator. It indicates the labor code, whether it be 4060, 4061, or 4062, under which the evaluation is being ordered. And we'll talk about that perhaps in another session, but it's extremely important for you to know which labor code is driving the need for the evaluation, and that's described on this form, QME Form 106. Also, QME Form 106 contains demographic data that you might not be able to get anywhere else. It might contain demographic data that's not on some of the other forms and pieces of paperwork that you receive from the parties, because QME Form 106 is a form that's submitted to the Division of Workers' Compensation, and before the Division of Workers' Compensation is going to issue a panel on this case, they will indeed confirm the accuracy of the information on QME Form 106, and you can have access to that information if you simply request that QME Form 106 be included in the materials that are sent to you when you schedule the appointment. Always ask the requesting party for a copy of their most complete, most thorough, and most accurate demographic data, please, and use those terms: accurate, complete, thorough, accurate, complete, thorough, because the more accurate, the more complete, and the more thorough are the demographics that you receive, the less amount of staff administrative time and effort on your side is going to be required to be expended to confirm or to make that information accurate, to make that information thorough. In other words, it's either the parties send you accurate information or you then yourself have to go through the great lengths to obtain accurate information to convert this request for an appointment into a fully compensable reimbursable appointment over which none of the parties, including the payer, and especially the payer, will have any objection to. And that's what you want when you schedule these appointments. You want fully compensable appointments where the parties have no objection to the evaluation moving forward with you as the qualified medical evaluator. When you get the demographics and a copy of the panel, you get a copy of the panel, the QME panel, and their very best complete thorough demographics. Confirm that your name is on the panel, and that's not a 100% circumstance, let me tell you. Confirm that the examinee's name is on the panel and that the examinee is the same name as the examinee on the demographics. Verify the date of injury. Verify the date of panel issued, and look for any red flags, such as appointments that are being scheduled beyond 10 days after the panel was issued. And you're going to go through a tremendous painstaking process to verify every digit, every comma, every hyphen of all of the information on the demographics. Because guess what? If you fail to confirm every single digit, you're tempting fate and you're tempting the payment gods, who may confound you and return to you a $0 reimbursement for an evaluation in which you have tremendous investment. So let the buyer beware. Go through your due diligence process. Finally, you want to ask for copies of the strike letters. And when the parties issue their strike on the panel, they do that by way of issuing a letter to the other party. So not only do they take their pen and strike directly on the QME panel itself, they also issue a letter to the other party explaining what they're doing and who they're striking from the panel. You want to get copies of the strike letters. The purpose of getting copies of the strike letters is to confirm, indeed, that you are the last evaluator standing, and the parties have both exercised their right. They both have gone through the process. They both struck a name from the panel. You are the last evaluator standing, and all of the sequences of events have been complied with, and to which none of the parties, especially the payer, have any objection to. So no parties have any objection or dispute to moving forward with the evaluation with you as the evaluator. So once you get all of this information, you're going to go through several sequences of events on your side of the telephone. You're going to check your schedule to determine your availability. You're going to contact your satellite office. If you use a satellite office for scheduling these appointments, you're going to determine their availability. You're going to now begin the administrative work of completing the appointment notification form. You're going to notify all parties, the claims administrator, the applicant attorney, the defense attorney. You're going to be sending out faxes and emails and paper copies of letters and notifications, all this administrative stuff. You're going to send a letter with intake documents to the examinee. You're going to be involved with putting postage on. You're going to be copying papers, sealing envelopes, and taking stuff to the post office. In other words, it's a tremendous amount of administrative work, and you want to make sure that all of this, once it's done, is done in one single cycle of action, and it's not done in vain. It's not done for naught. It's not done in a wasted cycle of action. And this confirmation procedure that I'm sharing with you, we've learned this through the School of Hard Knocks 100 times. I'm sharing this with you, and I'm sharing with you what goes on behind the scenes so that when you schedule appointments, you're scheduling only solid, fully compensable, high quality appointments. Okay? So let's take a quick look at QME Form 106. So here's QME Form 106. This is an online form that's filled out on the DIR's website. And what I just want to show you for the purposes of this discussion is that this form has to be completed by the parties. So they have to put in an accurate claim number, accurate date of injury. They have to indicate who's the requesting party, and there's a drop-down menu for that. They have to indicate what specialty is the treating physician, and also what specialty of the evaluating physician is being requested. Okay, and here's the list. So all of that has to be indicated on QME Form 106. Important for us, in addition to all of this demographic information, important for us is to learn which labor code is driving the need for this evaluation. And there's only 3. If you can determine the labor code that's driving the need for the evaluation, then you know exactly what you need to do in that particular evaluation. Now, the parties have this form. They have to complete this form in order for the medical director to issue a QME panel. So they have this form, and this form contains tremendous information that you can use as the QME. So always request a copy of QME Form 106 along with your initial intake documents. Okay, so let's explore this a little bit further. Now, if you're able to get all of this information, then you're likely dealing with a high quality versus a low quality appointment request. And the quality of the appointment descends or drops precipitously based on which of these pieces of information are either missing or are inaccurate. So if you can get QME Form 106, if you can get the panel with the strike letters, if you can get thorough and complete and accurate demographics, and all of that stuff looks good, you're scheduling then what appears to be a high quality appointment. If any one or more of these pieces of information are missing, then you're going to be dealing with a low quality, expensive, and unprofitable appointment if it ever comes to fruition to begin with. So for example, if you're not able to get QME Form 106, now you have no idea which labor code is driving the need for the evaluation, and you cannot therefore properly prepare for that evaluation. If you are not able to get QME Form 106, you have no accurate demographic information except that demographic information which is sent to you by the requesting party, which may or may not be accurate, and you can assume it to be inaccurate until proven otherwise. Okay, do you hear me? You can assume it to be inaccurate until proven otherwise. So always, always, always ask for QME Form 106. If you're not able to get a copy of the panel and the strike letters, then you're hamstrung because now you cannot fill out the appointment notification form. Why is that? Because the appointment notification form has an entry which requires the QME panel number. Without the QME panel number, you cannot fill out this appointment. And we're required by law to get this appointment out in 5 days of the date of the request of the appointment. So now you've introduced delay into your own system. You're hamstringing yourself by not getting properly executed panel with the strike letters. You cannot confirm the location of the evaluation, which is described on the panel. You have no demographic data. You cannot confirm that the examinee's name on the panel is the same as the examinee on the demographics. which is important because sometimes this information comes to us mismatched, if you can believe that or not. You can't determine the date of the injury, the date the panel was issued, and you're starting to introduce red flags into your scheduling appointment. And guess who bears the cost if this appointment does not come to fruition, if it does not come to be? Who bears the cost? Is it the requesting party? No. Is it the other party? No. Who is it? Well, it's you. You guessed it. It's you. So it's in your best interest to make sure that you insist on this as part of your regular scheduling policy to get these pieces of information. Well, what about the strike letters? So far, we've got no QME Form 106, no copy of the panel, no QME Form 106, no panel. What about the other pieces of information, such as the strike letters? Remember, missing any one or more of these pieces of information puts the risk on you for suffering a low-quality, unprofitable, and expensive appointment for which you, and only you, get to bear the cost. So if you're unable to get the strike letters, right, then you're unable to confirm that you, in fact, are the last evaluator standing, and that there will be no objection to the appointment. That's what we want. We want appointments over which none of the parties have any objection to moving forward with you as the evaluator. So, therefore, there exists the possibility, or let's even say there exists the opportunity, of some objection to moving forward with the evaluation with you. So imagine you spend all this administrative time gearing up, ramping up, getting excited, only to learn that one or the other of the parties has some objection. Some objection, like what? Like they say, we never even knew a panel was issued in the first place. Or we have an objection to even using a panel QME. We want to use an AME. Or we have some objection because this injured worker is not even an employee of this company. Or fill in the blank of what the objection is. You want no objection to moving forward with you as the evaluator. Otherwise, you're going to be bearing the cost of these losses. So if you're not able, so let's just go through some of the losses. So if you're not able to get this information, whether it be the Form 106, a copy of the panel, strike letters, copy of the demographics, the time you spend to check your schedule to determine your availability becomes wasted time. Now, let me tell you, you only have to go through this 2 or 3 times to start learning that you don't want to waste this type of time on these low quality appointment requests. The time you spend to contact the satellite office to confirm availability is wasted time. The time you spend to complete the DWC appointment notification form is wasted time. And if these things are handled for you by staff, this represents a loss of staff resources and a loss of opportunity cost also for you, your office, your clinic, what have you. The time you spend to notify all the parties of the appointment, sending out 3 faxes, 3 letters, 3 emails, all that typing and administrative time, and all the time and effort and energy becomes wasted time. The time you spend to send a letter with the intake documents to the examinee, which might be to the wrong address, might be to the wrong examinee, you don't know, you just never know. Could be wasted time, wasted money, wasted. So you can see the tremendous cost here of a low quality appointment. And I'm sharing with you some ideas as how you can mitigate some of these losses by setting these things up properly from the get-go. Now, let's imagine a scenario where one or the other of the parties actually has some objection to the evaluation moving forward. And you end up with now what appears to be a low quality, expensive, and unprofitable appointment. So let's just consider, one circumstance where the party says the objecting party says something like, well, we didn't know that a panel was even issued in the first place on this case. We object to the evaluation moving forward. There's an objection. Or the party says, we object to the specialty of the physician selected by the other party. It's an inappropriate specialty. We have an objection. So let's just imagine that what if, because of some initial objection, the appointment has to be rescheduled. Okay, so the parties give you some notice that, hey, we have an objection with the evaluation moving forward right now. We're going to take this appointment off the books. This appointment must be canceled. Do not move forward with this evaluation. You get this all the time. Well, if the appointment later becomes rescheduled, imagine a miracle happens and the objection is resolved, and the parties do agree to move forward with you as the evaluator, and the appointment has to be rescheduled. If that appointment actually keeps, in other words, it's a kept appointment, you've actually gone through the cycle of action of scheduling this and setting this up twice. You've doubled your cost, lowered your profitability, and you still don't know the labor code, still don't have accurate demographic information, etc. You simply have got the strike letters ironed out, and the striking process is ironed out, and you indeed are the last evaluator standing, but you still lack the necessary information for an effective evaluation during a time, or at the same time simultaneously, you've doubled your costs, doubled your admin time, and doubled your aggravation for this one single appointment. That's if the appointment actually keeps. In other words, the earth and the moon line up and the appointment keeps. Well, what if the appointment does not keep? Then all of the admin, all of that effort, time, and energy is a complete loss. Now, how many times would you have to suffer that in order for you to start to implement a strong scheduling procedure like what I'm recommending here for you in this particular discussion? How many times would that have to happen to you? Once? 10 times? How many? Well, I'm here to tell you that this will catch your attention quite quickly. If you have this happen to you 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and you realize that you've tied up your staff and your emotion unnecessarily, and you can obviate or eliminate this whole worry and this whole cycle by adhering to the process that I'm recommending to you in today's discussion. Okay, so let's bring this to an effective and dramatic conclusion here in today's discussion. And that is that it's your responsibility to build the quality of this evaluation or to terminate abruptly in the beginning if all facts confirm that you're dealing with a low quality, non-compensable appointment. So a high quality appointment is confirmed by, number one, obtaining QME Form 106, and the parties have this form. You can get it simply by asking that the parties send you this form. So ask for the form. It's part of your regular scheduling procedure. When you get QME Form 106, you can check that box. When you get 2 strike letters from the parties, and each of the parties have the strike letters of the other party. They have them, okay? And they will send them to you if you insist that they do. You get a copy of the panel, and everything appears to be consistent throughout the panel. You get a copy of complete demographics, and the parties, through the submission of all of this documentation to you, confirm that they have no objection to moving forward with you as the evaluator. This is the best you can do. Now, it's not a perfect procedure because at any point along the pathway of your scheduling this appointment, you could get notice from the parties that they've decided to use an AME on this case, or that the case has settled, or that the examinee is undergoing surgery and an appointment with you is premature, or 100 other scenarios can then cause that appointment, which appeared to be otherwise a high quality appointment, can it cause that appointment to be canceled, rescheduled, taken off the books, canceled forever? You never know. But up front, you owe it to yourself to do everything possible to retain the appointment. And it begins by letting the parties know that you're scheduling within 90 days and then going through the process of getting complete and accurate information that shows complete compliance with processes, okay? Complete compliance with processes before you get involved with scheduling an appointment that otherwise may not be agreed to and for which the parties may have some objection. Now, quality of the request for an appointment begins to drop precipitously and become high risk for you if you're not able to get QME Form 106, if you're not able to get the strike letters. If you don't get the strike letters, you don't know if the parties have stricken. You don't know if both parties have exercised the right to strike. If you don't get 2 strikes, guess what? It's likely there might not be 2 strikes, in which case you're scheduling an appointment for nothing. If you're not able to get a copy of the panel, maybe there is no panel with your name on it. You need to see a panel that has your name on it. If you're not able to get complete demographics or there's no demographics, guess what? You're biting off a lot of admin time, which is going to erode your profitability for this particular evaluation. So this is a tried and true sequence. It complies with all of the regulations. It complies completely with Labor Code Section 4062.2C, which deals with the striking process and the 10-day time period. And you need to understand what's going on behind the scenes that causes your phone to ring in the first place. You know, the parties simply want to get an appointment on the books, because an appointment on the books begins many of the timelines and the procedures in their world, in their life, in their universe. Okay, so you're concerned with your world, your life, and your universe, and you can't be used as a pawn in this process. So this is where you exercise control over your schedule and the cases that you accept to be the evaluator on. So doctors, I hope this helps you. These are some ideas that you can use in scheduling your very next appointment. And these are ideas that comply with the scheduling requirements described in California Code of Regulations 31.1, which now allows for relaxed timelines for scheduling initial appointments. So that's a good thing. And so because of the great work that you do as a qualified medical evaluator, you want to be taken seriously and you want to be used for evaluations for which the parties have no objection to moving forward with you as the assigned evaluator on the case. You want to be engaged in scheduling appointments that are good appointments. These suggestions that I've shared with you in today's discussion comply with codes of regulation, comply with labor code, specifically the striking process, the QME panel process, comply with all of these codes of regulation and all of these labor codes. And these are effective procedures that have been handed down from the greats and tested through time to be effective procedures to limit the scheduling of appointments on your book that are high quality, compensable evaluations wherein the parties agree that they want you to do the evaluation, and they want you to write the report. They want to use you as the evaluator to bring this case to a successful resolution. For those evaluations, you deserve to be paid, deserve to be paid fully, and the ideas that I shared with you in today's discussion will ensure that that indeed is your experience in doing these evaluations. So I want to thank you for taking the time to join me on today's session. In our next session, we're going to talk about some more changes that affect the day-to-day operations of you as a qualified medical evaluator. And in our next session, we're going to talk about the evaluation and reporting guidelines, and I have some great information to share with you as to how, again, the regulations can help you expand your influence and grow your practice as a qualified medical evaluator here in the state of California. So I look forward to being with you on our next session. For now, I want to thank you for your commitment to excellence. I want to thank you for your determination to do top quality work on each and every evaluation. For now, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter. I'm wishing you best of success in your career as a qualified medical evaluator.